Hailing from the backwoods of New Jersey, welcome to the Jersey Guys Music Podcast, where we feature in-depth music discussions and interviews with special guests from the worlds of hard rock, heavy metal, and AOR music. So settle in and crank it up. Now, here are your hosts, the Jersey Guys themselves, Tom and Mark.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Jersey Guys podcast. I'm Mark Ballo here with my co-host Tom Coyne, as always, and today we've got special guest Jon Fiore. You guys might know him from his Preview album that he released back in the early 1980s. We're going to talk about that. He had a couple solo albums. He's even gone into an acting career over the last few years, so we're going to touch on all that tonight. And as you can see up in the top corner, we've got a honorary Jersey guy, Mr. JJ Flynn, joining us from Singapore. So JJ's a friend of the podcast and a friend of Tom's for a long time. So welcome to the show, Jon and JJ.
Hey, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So Jon, the three guys you're sharing a screen with tonight, we're all big fans of that debut, that first Preview album that came out back in 1983. It's kind of like a cult classic album, right? Everybody that's into the AOR music of the 80s, should know that album. If they don't, it's definitely a good one. But I'm going to kind of hand it off to JJ because we were talking a little before you came on and joined us. And he had a lot of good questions about some of the early stuff in the early days of Preview. So JJ, you want to take it away?
Sure. Thank you very much. Hi, Jon. So I'll start off with one thing I've been really interested in for years. So your track you wrote with Alan Pasqua, and he came on board and wrote, 3 or 4 tracks on the album. How did that arise?
The old get on a song thing, you know how that works.
Yeah.
It was an interesting story. So obviously Danny and Ernie Gold, the two brothers, Ernie wrote most of the songs, and together they, produced them. So when we put this whole thing together, which is a great story anyway, so I'll just try and answer your questions. Otherwise, I can just go on and on and on. That's, it's probably the Italian in me,
Yep.
So, Keith was saying, as we're recording, he goes, how come you didn't write, any of the songs? I go, well, look, this was their thing. I do write. I have some stuff. He goes, play me some stuff. So this is during the actual recording of the album. And so I played him, it's over. And I pretty much had it written. It was written pretty much. I didn't have a bridge in it. And that's where Alan Pasqua got involved. And which I don't care. Listen, I'm for, 0 from 0 is nothing. I'm for, making great music and having fun, right?
Yeah.
So that's how that got on. And believe it or not, those guys were pissed off that record was on the record. Can you believe that?
So Alan came on the scene. Was he actually an in-house writer at Geffen at the time?
No. So Alan was one of these studio cats that Keith Olsen used.
Right.
So you guys know that he used a lot of the studio cats on the record.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Which irritated a lot of the guys, and I see their point. I understand, but that's how Keith worked. They picked him. You live and die with. That's what you do. So
did Ernie have a problem with that?
Well, I'm sure Alan actually, I think, co-wrote All Night, which was supposedly going to be the first single. Yeah. And he was brought in on that to write a bridge with Chaz Sanford, I think, jumped on that too, I think. Wasn't
it? Okay. Yeah.
Well, Chaz was another guy that was part of the whole corral of Keith Olsen. He had all those guys, which Hey, they were great. I mean, Mr. Mister, those guys were singing backgrounds with me. They weren't Mr. Mister, but they were,
Right.
you
So
know,
that's Martin Page and everyone, yeah. Wow.
yeah, exactly. It was pretty cool, Yeah, so that's how that happened. And obviously they weren't happy about it, but, it was all
So I remember
good.
there was a promo single of All Night, wasn't there? Because that was going to be the 7-inch, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was going to be, I think, the initial single. That's what I think got us signed pretty much.
Yeah.
That style. But I guess when they heard some of the other ones, Red Lights and something like that, maybe they thought, maybe more heavier. And then you know how music changes. They signed us 2 years. The record comes out, I think, two years later.
Yeah.
Music changes. I think Def Leppard was starting to be the band or whatever. I forget what sound.
Paramania was coming out. Yeah.
And that was another producer that we were looking to to entertain because he was his sound.
Mutt Lange. Yeah.
Mutt Lange.
Yeah.
But there was a bunch of different guys. Even John Boylan was thrown around too and stuff like that. Who I happened to meet John Boylan about 2-3 months ago.
Oh, wow.
He's out here working with a friend of mine, an actor friend, a guy named James Keach, who's an actor.
Oh yeah, James
producer,
Keach.
He's made movies. Yeah. So James and John are partners on a movie they're trying to do about Linda Ronstadt, which Boylan manages. So it's a small world, man. As long as you keep moving forward, man, you get to enjoy lots of different things,
Right.
I'm a big movie buff as well, so
cool.
We won't get into the movie.
We're probably going to have to do Jersey Guys with John, part 1, part 2,
maybe 3,
potentially even a part 3.
Be continued.
Yeah.
Right. Well, John, I wanted to ask you. You talked about the early album and how it kind of changed because Keith Olsen brought in different players on the album and everything like that. I had read something that the earlier Preview stuff when you guys were demoing songs back in New York and stuff, it was kind of a heavier sound, right, to the band?
It was definitely heavier when we were playing some of the New York clubs and stuff like that and playing some shows here and there. It was definitely heavier. Yeah, it was we were definitely a rock group. It was great, I hate to go backwards and say why it didn't or did not work. There's so many reasons why things do in life work or not work, but I think that was probably one of the the reasons the sound was a little softer because then they wanted David Tharna to remix it. They spent some more money on David Tharna, to try and remix it because I think they wanted a more raw, maybe a more rockin' sound. So they did try and spend more money. So it wasn't. I'm sure you guys have read some of the stuff too, the Keith Olsen interviews and things. I mean, I've done a bunch of stuff like that.
There must have been a lot of money spent on the album. The budget must have been huge.
You know what? To be honest with you, I don't know exactly what the number was, but I know it was huge, and I know there were deals coming at us. And because I did write a song, I was part of something, but. These guys never wanted to do any publishing. They never wanted to, meaning, if they watch this, I'm not making things up. But, they weren't, for whatever reason, that's their reason, right? Everybody has their own reason, but they didn't want to do publishing deals. And there was some good money being thrown at us. And sometimes I think that maybe that had something to do with the label and the distribution, which was Warner, to get behind us. Because where's their interest? They're going to put, $1 million plus in, into a group to break them. Videos. Yeah. I mean, we didn't have a video. We were done. When I knew, that was MTV era, right? When we didn't have a video, I knew it. We were shot, it just wasn't going to happen. And don't forget, we had 5 labels bidding on us. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I read that, yeah.
I mean, they were literally bidding on us. We were like, we felt we had it. We had the goods. When we would entertain live, the people liked us, and we were just beginning, man. It was, God knows what we could have done. You know what I'm saying? Who knows? Nobody knows. But
so if you started out as a rock musician, right, that you were looking to play, I'm assuming like not hard rock, but rock with a little kick to it. This album kind of was like, which now regarded as an AOR classic. I don't even think the term AOR was really thrown around that much. It kind of came out of that West Coast, what we call yacht rock sound of 79,
exactly.
80.
Yeah.
Right. Were you looking to go in that direction, or they kind of softened it and pulled you into this
So
more?
when we started, when we got together, do you know how I met the Golds? Does it matter? Or, I mean, I'll just answer your questions. I mean, I have stories. So,
No.
But anyway, so I met the Golds through a newspaper ad.
Okay,
So
that
I think
did
that
read.
was written. Okay, so
Yeah.
so when we started, we were all on the same path. I mean, I was singing, for a long time, doing other things. I wasn't doing records. Here's really the story is that I was showcasing. So I started guitar at 11 years old, right? I played guitar, and growing up, and music was a hobby to me. It wasn't something I planned on doing. I was in my first year of college, Staten Island Community College. There you go. and my girlfriend at the time, we went to the Playboy Club in New York City. We were on a thing, and I would be in bands growing up, playing, hey, with a monkey, all the songs out in the 70s, whatever, wait, 60s,
60s.
Right?
Monkeys
60s.
came on in 66.
I was born in 55, so you're talking about,
I was born in 58. So
there you go.
The Monkeys came out in 66. I was 7 years old when the show came
So
out.
whatever was popular then, we were doing it. But so the point I was trying to make is, I'm at the Playboy Club, and this cabaret artist, I'll never forget her name, Vivian Reed. She was on Broadway. She comes over to me with the microphone, and at the show, and I start singing, whatever it was, yeah, and people started applauding. That's what did it to me. There was some energy in that room that I never felt before, and so I went back to my sister's house in Staten Island, in not Great Kills, but I think she was in Tottenville or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a little further south.
Yeah, it's a little further. And her husband at the time, said, "How do you get started in this business? Because we don't, we didn't know anything about, all these things today, these outlets and stuff like that." And they go, "Well, there's some newspapers called Backstage and Show Business." I said, "Really?" So I started looking at them, and that's how I really got started. I started doing talent contests in Brooklyn. There was not much in Staten Island, but although I did do shows in Staten Island eventually, but Brooklyn, Queens, New York City was the place. So getting back to your question, because I don't want to just keep going, I used to showcase at a couple of different places. One was Alan Dick's. I did a little bit at the, what was the other one? The one where Pat Benatar used to showcase, where she met her manager, Rick Newman's place. Catch a Rising Star.
Oh, right.
So,
yeah.
But I didn't really meet her there. I met her at this place, Alan Dick. She had orange hair. She looked totally different. She was classically trained. And she and I were regulars. We would get up and sing a song. And back then she was, whatever she was singing. And it wasn't rock, trust me. She was classically trained and all that stuff. Then the same with me. I was singing pop or whatever it was, starting to put an act together and stuff. And then flash forward, years later, I'm doing, Catskill Mountains, singing, Fly Me to, I'm singing everything, just to work. I love to sing. I have a career going. As soon as that lady grabbed me from that cabaret show, I was off. I was done. I was like, I just
that adrenaline rush stayed with you.
Yeah, I was on the journey, and I was obsessed, and I was going to take pre-law. I was starting to take pre-law courses in college, and then I was done. But years later, I see Pat Benatar. I hear this song on the radio. She's jet black hair, and you hear Heartbreaker and Dream Maker. But I go, holy shit! And that's where the thing in my head just clicked and said, I've always, I was writing music and stuff, but not seriously. I'd write some stuff. I heard music in my head and lyric and stuff. That's when I knew I had to get into an original band and write my own stuff. That's when I knew it, because I wasn't going anywhere in the Catskills looking like Frank Sinatra or something like that.
and Pat Benatar, you guys preview played with on or toured.
How
with
about
Pat
that?
Benatar,
Eventually, right? So from the inspiration, we opened up for her for 3 months. Well, I think that's what you're related to. And then we had the same producer. We had Keith Olsen for. So interesting. And but that's how that all happened. Now, when I met the Golds, that's not the music we were doing. We were doing, because don't forget, you got to go backwards. it was more the punk era, the punk era at that time, and we were doing more of that kind of music, more
late
like
70s.
the Ramones
Yeah.
kind of thing, influences on that kind of music. But again, stuff that they wrote. So I was looking for them. They were looking for me. They were two guys, producers that wanted to get a record deal and, and make records. And that's what I wanted. So when I found these guys in backstage, that's how I did it. They were in Long Island, and we worked hard, and we just kept persevering, and the sound kept changing, and then, it just evolved into where we were, And then we added the drummer, we added the bass player. Well, the bass player was a local guy that they knew, Skip Parker, and Eddie Bettinelli came in later. There was another guy before that. So, and I still keep in touch with Eddie from here, from here and there. So that's.
So was the original thought process of the band to be harder than this? Like, I don't think it doesn't sound like you were really going for like a West Coast AOR classic album.
No.
Right.
No.
So how did it turn out to be?
I think it turned out it was all about the songs. I think it was more about we set out to write hit songs, right? Or, I think that's as far as I'm concerned, Ernie wrote some great songs, and the two brothers, the production, the demos, they had everything at their house. They had the studio and all that stuff. So we did everything there. And I think that's what it was. I just think it was Ernie, he kept evolving, and my voice kept evolving in the direction. I mean, I could sing anything. So back in those days, I probably couldn't sing, like the harder stuff. But I was basically that type of Foreigner meets Journey meets Boston meets, I think that Loverboy. I think that's how they described us. I think some of the things, White Snake, that kind of things. Which was another Keith Olsen record.
That's right.
But I just say, I did read, John, that when John Kolodner came to see you live, you were a heavier band. And one of the times he was in the studio, he was quite shocked that you'd actually calmed everything down.
Yeah, but it wasn't us. It was Keith Olsen.
Right,
It was the record label. I remember going into, there were issues, as we were doing the record. I told you that a lot of these guys didn't play on the record, which is not new news, that he used studio cats. And the guys were upset, and needly so, right? Danny, those guys can play, but that was Keith. And we were in the office with David Geffen. I remember, being called in. I mean, I didn't mind, because I wanted, we want a career. Let's get going. Let's have hit songs. Let's get out there. Let's perform. And there's always a second record, and then hopefully a third, and you evolve as a band. But David Geffen said they weren't happy, and David said, "You guys let Keith do whatever he wants. We'll make you stars." I'll never forget that. It's stuck in my head.
Yeah.
So I wasn't the one that was upset over it, because I wanted a career,
Yeah, of course.
I had visions down, who knows what happens, a lot of bands don't stay together too long. You never know,
No. And you were saying about 5 or 6 majors after you. I know Epic was one, wasn't it?
Right, we had Epic, Chrysalis, Sony.
Yeah. So were they all offering the same deal? Was it a 1-album deal?
Pretty much, they were all the same as far as one with a second option. Everything's in their court. That everything's in their hands. If you do well on the first one, you're gonna get a second one.
Yeah.
But if not, and it just depends if they hang on to you. Like the Whitesnake thing, I was remembering, he didn't do well at the beginning, but they stuck with him.
Yeah.
They didn't stick with us. There was talk about doing a second album, and it never happened. So and that's when I went back to.
So those demos that have been done, I think I've got 4 or 5 of them. Were they specifically for the second album, or were they just going to be shopping around?
It depends what demos you have. I don't know what songs you're talking about, but
Yeah, I can't remember offhand the actual. They're not very good quality. They're okay, but they're not mastered. You know?
I have a whole CD of them. Like it's probably
Yeah.
if I should have
really?
pulled it out.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
you should give them to Dave then over
I'm not giving them to nobody. I'll give them to you, but don't give them to him.
Yeah, so
Tom sent them to me, and on the email, it's the first thing it said wasn't "Hi JJ, how you doing?" The first thing was, "Do not share this."
yeah. Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah.
Very anal
That's
with my
what
stuff.
Yeah. What are you gonna? I mean, what are people gonna sue over anyway? I mean, what are you gonna get, a penny or something? You know.
Now, you have to know
Like, what are you
CD
gonna do?
collectors and demo collectors.
Yeah,
We
what do you
are.
mean?
Yeah.
Die with these, with this music?
It's just the idea of that I have something that you don't have. That is
yeah.
worth more than $1 million to say I have it, you don't, and I'm not giving it to you.
I mean, I was in Japan years ago, and we're going through. We find a record store out there, the Axel Vinyl store, where they sell records, and I go looking in. I see the best of Fiore. I go, what? Where did this come
Right,
from?
they did put out a best of those two albums. Yeah,
Yeah,
you didn't know it.
Yeah, the ones I did with Harry Hess, and
Yeah. So you didn't even know they put that out?
I never knew. It's crazy.
I always thought it was weird because it was only 2 albums. Usually you think of a best of like somebody has
I know.
10 albums.
Yeah.
out.
Someone figured, we can get another. We can put 2 together and get another.
Right. Yeah. Exactly right.
Yeah. So. Crazy.
So just finishing up on my last thought, like 84 was kind of in the U.S. like a weird time for this music because I always look at like the vintage AOR West Coast sound was like 79 to about 83. A lot of those albums, I-10, they all came out around that time. 84 was when a lot of the European metal started to become big in the States. The Scorpions, Priest, Maiden, and then the Bon Jovi, the hair explosion was just a year or so after that, early 86.
Right. We missed that.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. It kind of like came out at a weird time, this album.
Exactly. I think the timing was, I think the record took a little longer than it should have, too. Don't forget, it was almost 2 years after we started recording it. We should have had that record recorded in less than a year. I mean, there's no reason for a record to take 2 years, and that's when things change. Sound changes. So it's like everything else, timing, like you said, music changes, music comes out. And, everybody, they're in business to make money, whether or not they believe in you or not. And I also think they just didn't want to be hassled maybe by all the internal turbulence that I said was going on. Maybe.
Right.
I don't know. It's hard to analyze the whole thing. Yeah.
So back in that era, the producers really, we've had so many other guests on, the producers packed a lot of weight, those name producers.
Of course, it was, again, Keith Olsen was the guy in charge. He was the guy in charge. I mean, God rest his soul. He's not, longer living, but,
right.
So, I would never speak ill about anybody, but, he was great to work. It was great. It was something new to me. There were a lot of drugs going around during the recording, not on our end, on, the producers, the engineers, and the whole bit, that was their thing. So whether or not that had any bearing, I don't know. I mean, the Beatles wrote hit songs on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
So who the fuck knows what that
right,
was?
Right, yeah.
So, we were in the Let Keith, it was new for me too. So I was learning to work with a name, producer that I, respected and, liked the sound. But you're right. Kolodner was the one who found it. He came, we did a showcase in New York City at a place called Trax. You remember Trax on
place.
72nd Street, West 72nd Street? So we rented it out during the day. And we had Kolodner, Kolodner saw us, prior to that and liked us. And then he brought Keith Olsen in to see us. And Keith saw us and said we had the songs and we had the front guy. So that's what he told me. So.
Okay,
so those
JJ,
those songs you played when Kolodner came to see you, were they basically the same tracks on the album, or was it a variation?
They were basically that direction that we were in at that time. Yeah. That was when we were getting we were getting more commercial as far as that kind of music, you know, that rock, like you say, yacht rock now, whatever.
Yeah. Because of that era, which I experienced later, there was the preview album and the debut from Aldo Nova, which were very different for that time. Yeah, excellent songwriting, good production. Two different stories, of course, between you and his debut. But I was thinking, when the songs were softened, when Kolodner came in and said, "Oh, it's a lot softer," and you were listening to Keith doing all the production and everything, I know you were happy with that, and you were saying Ernie wasn't, because basically he'd written all the songs. So the softened sound and Alan Pasqua coming in, was that all the plan, I suppose, to get everything streamlined?
I think more like Alan came in during some of the restructuring of certain songs. One was the All Night, so he wrote a bridge for that. That's all it was. It was just restructuring.
Okay.
But I think he played on some of the songs. He might have played on that one, and there were a bunch of different guys that played on it, and that was the issue. It was more of they were unhappy with, meaning the guys in the band, because they didn't play. They didn't play on the record. Keith had his guys.
How was the atmosphere in the studio when you're singing and you've got some session guys playing their music? It must have been quite depressing.
It's interesting, but eventually with all these meetings we had, everybody knew, listen, we have to be on the same boat together. We want a career, don't we? Don't we want a career? The record company's in charge, not us.
Yeah.
Although I wish we were, when you look back, maybe if we, would have stood up, or, who knows, when I watch these old Queen movies, Queen would say, "Fuck off. I'm doing what I want to do."
Right.
I go, "Why didn't I do that?" So I don't know. It's all, but I got to say it did hurt a long time.
Yeah.
It did hurt. When you want something really, really bad, in life. I'm dealing with, my daughter who wants something really bad, not in the music business. She wants to get pregnant. It's not happening right away, but it hurts, but that's life,
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, so.
Was that standard operating procedure that they used guys that played on the album, but it wasn't like the cat wasn't let out of the bag type of thing?
We didn't know that up front. Maybe, and it wasn't that the guys, I think the guys had a chance. The guys did play when they were cutting rhythm tracks. The guys were there. It was that for some reason, maybe because they wanted to get it done faster, I don't know. And maybe they didn't, like Danny would do some play on some of the overdubs, and stuff like that he would play. But I don't think the bass player played one note on it. I could be wrong.
Wow.
It's going way back, but I don't think he played. The drummer, Eddie got to play some, but he used Mike Baird back then. Do you remember
Mike Baird? Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think he was in Journey for a while too, or something.
Yes.
He was a studio.
He was on that Riverdogs album.
Yeah. They were all studio. Yeah. I mean, we had the guy, what's his name, from Cheap Trick played on my song, It's Over, which, that was great.
Who?
Nielsen did?
Yeah, Nielsen
Really?
played the solo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Listed on it, yeah. So.
Because folklore always was that there was we in the hair band era, which, we were all big fans of, Mike Slammer played on probably more albums that he wasn't featured on,
Yeah.
And you would hear all these things. That wasn't this guy. That wasn't that. It was Mike Slammer. It was Mike Slammer. It was Mike Slammer. But they never let that out of the bag. And I've even seen him on interviews where he kind of doesn't say yes or no.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, later on when I got to do sessions in New York City for a long time, I would meet all these guys that said, "Oh yeah, I played on, that was me playing that solo on this record, that record, this record,
Okay.
that record, this record," Crazy. But, that's what it was. And that's why, like I told you, David Tharna came in later. They tried to remix it. So they were going for a more heavier, sound.
Yeah.
I think that they should, Kolodner should have been in there, man, every freaking day. He should have been in there. He stayed away. He should have been in there listening to what was going on.
Because he probably would have beefed it up somewhat with his track record of what he had done.
He's the guru, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so I'm not saying that it's his fault or anything, but I'm just saying that's when you have that, and then you have David telling you let Keith do whatever he wants to do.
But the oddity of it is what's made this album endure for 40 years is that it's a soft AOR album.
Yeah, and it's good. The songs are great.
Oh, yeah, it's great. It's great. It
mean,
probably wouldn't have endeared as well if it was heavier. Because it's been something like for AOR aficionados like us three, it's always been like, top of the heap.
I mean, not to toot the horn, but when you get emails from people or letters from people from all over the world that I would get some stuff, and people would say, and this is funny, oh my gosh, you're unbelievable, you're better than Led Zeppelin. I mean,
well, that's, AOL guys tend to lose their minds.
What?
Yeah.
I'm going, what?
Right.
But
Let me have some of what you're smoking.
These are fans. No, I'm talking about people that like.
No, I'm saying the fans, whatever he was smoking.
Yeah, whatever they're smoking.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I was reading some article, like some reviews and stuff of that album, and it was like, people are just like, a masterpiece, a classic, not to be questioned, it's like just stuff like that, the cult status of it. So it's pretty amazing that just that one single album, right?
Yeah, it's true.
There's no fillers on the album. It's one of those albums you put on, you play the whole thing, and then you upset it's finished. It's a great album.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a guy that I hooked up with here in LA, Mark. I'm trying to think his last name. He was in a punk band or something like that. The nicest guy. We keep in touch here and there. His wife just passed away, and he says, "Oh my gosh, my wife would listen to your record every day." And I go, this is when you hear this stuff, it's just like it just gets you, that some people actually found it and liked it, and it's a beautiful thing, it's just
So how did you ever get involved with the Harem Scarem guy, Harry and Pete Lesperis and Darren Smith? And
yes, so that was done through MTM Records, the Swedish
Magnus.
label. Magnus. Somehow he contacted me and told me this guy, Harry Hess in Canada,
Toronto.
Toronto was interested in producing you. So I said, well, great, let's do it, and that happened after I had a solo deal with Atlantic. You knew about that too, right?
Well, that's what I was going to talk about, because I know JJ and I were talking about this earlier before we went on. We want to backtrack a little bit to that mid-90s period there.
So that's how I met Harry Hess, and that was a phenomenal experience. I mean, Harry Hess, so talented, the band amazing, just great stuff. And again, he had the songs written. It was basically, from what I understand, it was a Harem Scarem record, without
really?
Harry singing, right? I mean, you guys would know.
Yeah, I mean, it had the sound. It had their sound to a T.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, it was so much fun. It was so quick. Harry's great. We still keep in touch from here to there. We just say
They had a real signature. There was so few bands of that era that had a signature sound. They were one of them. Yeah, they had a real signature sound.
They were heavy, as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, no, they were, but they had like a real unique sound.
Yeah, I mean, God, I listened to some of that stuff, and some of it had overtones of the Def Leppard vocals. First one I did with him, Today to Tomorrow, and stuff like that. So he wrote all that stuff. He had it written, so it was easy, quick. The second record we did, which was Body Electric, we co-wrote everything together. So. Which was great. So we both did lyrics, we both did this, that, music, titles, and so that was another experience. It was great. Again, we did that for. I think the first one was done for. It was mainly done for Sweden and Zero Corporation.
Zero, yeah, I have them here. The Japanese copies came out on Zero. Yeah.
There you go. And that was supposed to be a big thing, and then all of a sudden, I think Zero went like bankrupt.
They did, and they went bankrupt very shortly like after these might have been, if not the last.
It might have been the last
Yeah.
deal. I know. I
Yeah.
know. I mean, crazy. There was talk about us coming over there, doing shows, and all that stuff. Oh God, I couldn't wait.
And Zero, I don't know whether you know this or not, like from when grunge hit in the States big, a lot of the big bands from the States got signed to Zero. They had like a big catalog.
I did.
They
I
had
think
become
Judas
like almost
Priest.
like a major label in
Yeah.
Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
And
lot
they
of
had
those
like
bands-
about from like 92 to 96, 97. And then there were a lot of other small Japanese labels that were popping up. I think that was
Yes.
stealing Alfred Brunet and a whole bunch of them. And they ended up folding.
Yeah. Supposedly I think that those records were released in like 18 countries or something like that back
No,
then.
they had big distribution. Yeah, very big.
So, that was that. Another one.
It's all part of this music, really. I mean, every guest we have on, it's kind of the same thing,
Oh,
It's,
listen, I know these stories are a lot. They're similar in many ways. It's in like anything we do, I mean, I could go with, the acting thing is another one, that whole thing. But, people break out, it happens,
people that weren't part of the scene. I mean, I go back to the 60s like you do.
Yeah.
A lot of younger people think that this music was like always endearing, and they don't realize all the pitfalls and how dead rock was in the States and in the late 70s, and with the punk and the disco, and and they just think that there was always like this great wave of rock music, and everybody
know.
and I talk about it all the time. There's so many bands that in other parts of the country would be big, and then you'd see them play New York in the Cat Club in the city, and there's 50 people there,
Exactly.
and they're signed to a major label. So like a lot of
And that's
people that
exactly-
didn't live the scene think it's a lot more glorious than what it was.
Exactly. I mean, the record's supposedly out, and we're doing, some radio shows up in the Catskills or some other stuff up in, the upper New York State. And the record, we're doing a show and this and that. The record's not even in record stores. It was like, there was just no promotion, nothing. Right. Whether or not they were trying to see if it would hit, they played it on a couple of stations. It takes more than that. You got to get it to a couple of major stations.
Oh, absolutely.
And then let the people decide. But that's that. We should do a documentary. That would be great, a music doc, because I haven't seen anything like that. You get all the other docs about certain bands and this and that, blah, 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 blah.
Want to get it off the ground, I could help you out. I've lived through all the eras. I mean,
Well, you guys know, because you interview a lot of people, so there's so many of these stories,
Oh, everybody's got a story. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a really close friend of mine who became over the years, and we opened up for his band back then. So it's great to meet these guys later in life. The Tubes, remember the Tubes?
of course.
Yeah. So, what's his name? What's the lead?
Faye Wable.
Fee Waywood.
Faye Weagle.
Fee.
And Prairie Prince was in that band.
So Fee and his wife live like just up the street from where I am in LA. So we became friendly over the last probably about 6, 7, 8 years, and so he the stories that he tells me about his thing. They were lucky to get David Foster on their stuff. So that was a big thing with him later on. They had their thing, they had their sound and whatnot. But then when Foster came in, that really gave him that album. The Talk to You Later. And
Yeah, that's the album that broke them on the radio, at least. Yeah.
In fact, they just did a 75th anniversary. I wasn't in town for it. I would have went at the Hollywood Bowl, and it was for David Foster's 75th birthday. And Fee and the Tubes played, I think, one of those songs because
Really?
went to see it. Anybody who Foster was, producing over his years, Celebration. I think Bocelli was there. Everybody. So
Wow.
Cool.
So I know JJ wants to talk to you a little bit about
JJ,
the film.
Yes.
And
Well, before I go on to that, I was going
Go ahead.
to say the '93 was it Atlantic deal you had?
96, I think.
'96 was it? Okay. What was that going to be then? What kind of music?
Okay, great. So great story. You know how I got that deal? So I'm in New York City, and I'm doing sessions. I'm a session singer, right? Singing commercials, jingles, and all kinds of stuff. So I'm getting a phone put in my car, telephone. You know, back then, 80.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
Big block.
Yeah. So I go to this place, and the guy who owns the place up on 10th Avenue up there, you know, he knows me. He knew Will Lee, the bass player, and all that stuff. You know, who's always involved in music. So he goes, "Oh, you know who's coming in later?" I go, "No, who?" He goes, "Jason Flom from Atlantic." I go, I don't know, because I'm out of the record business. I don't know, you know, much. And pretty much. And he goes, "Yeah, Jason." I go, "Oh, great." So I end up coming back to pick up my car, and my friend asked me, "Play something." And I'm playing him a demo that I co-wrote with my friend Jed Lieber, who's out here in California. And so we wrote this song. I mean, I wrote it pretty much. Then I called Jed up over the phone. He was in LA, I was in New York. We finished it, blah, blah, blah. And this other kid demoed it for me in New York, and so we were doing demos because I want to get another deal. I was, you know, anyway. Long story short, he's playing it, and in walks Jason Flom. So the guy goes, "Oh, what's that?" And my friend goes, "That's him." He goes, "That's you?" He goes, "Sounds great. That's a hit." I go, "I know." He goes, "Can I take it?" I go, "No." He goes, "Would you come in for a meeting?" I go, "Sure." And that's how that started. And it evolved. It took a couple of months. I remember seeing Doug Morris, who was running the label at the time. And don't forget, I was in my late 30s, I think I was. I was, you know, 96, whatever that was. And yeah. I was almost, late 30s. Maybe even early 40s, yeah. Anyway, so I remember Doug looking at me. I see him looking at my sideburns, because they were gray, you know, a little gray. So I see his eyes go to my sideburns, and I was like, "Oh boy, this is not going to." But anyway, I think he threw a snowball at Jason, and so Jason went into a, you know, like, "Oh, maybe this guy's a little old." But when Jason found me, he goes, "That's what I'm looking for. A Michael Bolton meets Garth Brooks meets this." You know, that's what he said. You know, this is how weird this business is, that people, you know, at that given moment.
Right.
And so eventually, blah, 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 he kept toying with himself, but we got the deal. And then the problem is unlike Preview, we had all the songs, right? We had all the songs demoed. You could play them. With this, we only had a couple songs that I co-wrote, you know, or wrote. So then we're chasing songs. Then we're Jason sending me stuff. Listen to this. You know, you got all those the major hit songwriters sending me their C records. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know,
the songs they're never going to use.
Exactly. You know, unless David Foster, you get somebody like him involved.
Right.
So what's his name? Jason reaches out to, I think, somebody who co-wrote Andy, what's his name? He co-wrote some of the songs on Bolton's records, the big songs like Soul Provider.
That
Andy
guy.
Goldmark? Andy Goldmark?
Yeah.
Or Gold something? Yeah.
So he's Goldmark, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Goldmark.
Yeah.
So he reaches out to me. He goes, "Hey, listen, we should write a song with Linda Thompson, who's David Foster's wife at the time, in Malibu." So don't forget, I was living in New York, so they flew me out here for a couple of months, stay out here. And so we're writing stuff with Linda. Linda loved me. And she says, "Oh, I got to play, David's going to love you, blah, blah, blah." You know, and he's big with Warner and that and stuff like that. And so that's what Jason was trying to get. He goes, "If we can get, you know, Foster involved, we got a shot." Otherwise, I think they gave me, they gave me some other guy who we did some stuff, who did like old Michael Jackson stuff, but it wasn't, you know, I think he was more of a musician. I'm trying to think of his name, but the other guy was the famous R&B producer over at Atlantic. Who was the guy that did all those records for so long? Remember his name? Turkish.
90s?
Yeah, 80s, 70s, 80s. Big, you know. Anyway, his son got involved. Joe. Sorry, I should have had this stuff written down. And then, so that's what happened. And, you know, eventually we just, the whole thing just evaporated. We were spending money and this and that. And, you know, I remember I ran into George Benson at the hot tub here in LA. He goes, "Hey man, why don't you use one of my songs?" We started talking and stuff like that. And then later on, I end up co-writing a song on one of his records years later, which was
cool.
pretty great. Yeah, I got 3 co-writes on one of his albums, cool album. So so that's how that '96 thing came. And what also happened was Doug Morris was leaving, or he was being moved up to being president of the whole Universal group or something, and they were bringing in a guy called Danny Gold. I think. Well, I don't know if it's Danny Gold, but Danny Goldstein maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was the new president. He didn't last long, so we just got shuffled and we were done, pretty much. So the record never came out. A lot of good demos with Keith Diamond, God rest his soul. We did a couple of really great songs. He would write with me, co-write. And I'm trying to think of that R&B writer, but so it was a great, another great experience, but it didn't happen,
So you're just saying in the middle of that conversation about Bolton, because you guys actually were doing jingles and commercials together, weren't you?
Correct. That's how I met him. Yes, he was sort of in a void, going to. And now there's a great story, right? He was doing records for years. I don't think he really broke yet like he did, and had a couple of things. He was in and out of rock bands, but he started making money when he did commercials, and he got in there because of his manager, Louis Levin, one of his other singers, Joe Sarasano, who was a really great jingle singer or session singer.
Yeah.
So they got Bolton in there. Bolton, hit it with this jingle writer, Susan Hamilton. She's no longer alive. God bless her. And so it was like, you get me some stuff, and he had her produce Georgia on his record or co-produce it. So that's how he, came out of that, and he liked my voice, so he invited me in to sing. I'll never forget. I heard those songs by Desmond Childs, great songs. He takes me into the studio late at night, and I hear this demo. How can we be lovers? How can we be lovers? I go, what? This is an amazing song. It's like crazy.
Wow.
And so I got to sing on that one, and then You Wouldn't Know Love was the other one, and then he produced that. They just put it on Cher's record because he produced 2 songs on it. So that was a great thing,
Cool, really cool. Also, I didn't know about which commercials you did back in the day, so I did a bit of research. You did some big companies, didn't you? Really big companies.
I'm not gonna let him get out of here until he does the Folgers song for us.
The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
There you go. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Gatorade, it's Thursday. No, I was very fortunate. Very
My
fortunate.
favorite was the Slice commercial.
Oh,
it even sounds.
juice.
Yeah.
You got the juice, new slice. Try it. When I do shows, like there's a club here I do. I used to do it a couple times a year. Now I'm down to like once a year because I get bored with it. It's called the Vibrato Club over here. And so I use the screens, which is great. And I play, I do a whole thing. I play Out on the Edge from the Heavenly Kid,
soundtrack.
Yeah.
In fact, I come out like that, like a rock star,
Yeah.
And then we transcend back into, the story, my story, which is great. I just tell stories about, these songs, how they, people in my life but anyway, we get to the commercials and people seem to like that. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Always like,
I mean, the commercials you actually see on YouTube and with your voiceover, the Atari one and these ones, they're real classic commercials. You know what I mean?
Atari, I know. Yeah. But you know deep down that it's gonna be a Hummer. Nobody's harder than Atari this summer. No! I don't know if that's the key, but that's pretty high.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Oh man. Does this mic sound good? I'm curious.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds fine.
Very good. Lucky we're recording it.
So we did so many of them, all the Cokes, all the Slice. I mean, all that stuff. So yeah.
Another thing I was going to say after this, I was going to mention the Heavenly Kid. So did that come about because you were friends with some of the production people, or did you just put a song in there and they took it?
Another great story. I got lots of stuff. So working with Steve Ferroni, right, the session drummer who was in the Average White Band, who we opened up for, Preview opened up for them in New Jersey at what was that something bowling alley? There was a bowling alley that rock bands played at, the 510 lane, something lane. Yeah, it was in I think it was in Asbury Park area.
I was just going to say,
Fast Lane? Fast Lane?
Fast Lane. There you go.
I was right next door to Asbury Lanes, I think.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that's the place.
Was it a rock club?
The Fast Lane was,
the Fast
and I
Lane
think,
was,
well, then the bowling thing eventually turned into a rock club, yes.
Okay, so I think it's the Fast Lane. And we opened up for the Average White Band. And then later on in the years, I got to meet Steve. Steve was doing commercials. He was a session drummer. He'd do some of that stuff. And so we got to be friends. He liked my voice and stuff like that over the years. So he calls me one day. I'm in New York. He goes, Fiore, it's Ferroni. I go, oh, what's up? He goes, I'm here with George Duke in LA. We're in the studio. I go, oh, great. I didn't even know who George Duke was. He goes, we're doing something. He's looking for Steve Perry to do something for whatever. So he goes, here, boom. And so he puts me on the phone. I go, oh, hi. He goes, yeah. Da, 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 da. We start talking. And I didn't know where it was going to lead, but I think I was on a plane within 5 days. I was, flown out to LA, and we did The Heavenly Kid.
Wow.
Yeah, which was really, really, really cool. Great song. Randy Goodrum wrote that song.
That is a good song.
Yeah.
And then we were going to do, well, that's a whole nother story. We were going to do, he wanted to do, because I could sing R&B, I could sing all that stuff. He wanted to do, he heard some other things I did, and he was an R&B producer too. He did Let's Hear It for the Boys. He did, not Teddy Pendergrass. Who was the guy? Really great album. Stay With Me Tonight. Anyway, so I remember there was talk about he wanted to do a record with me. And at that time, Doc McGee was like my acting manager, so to speak. We didn't sign anything, but I met him through this other guy. That was the other thing going back with Preview, not to get anything. I think our management sort of didn't help us. We didn't have the power management behind us. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that is the reason, but that's another thing. You get the right management behind you. Like if we had Doc McGee or somebody like that who was behind us, maybe they would have forced it. They didn't want to put that record out. The manager we had sort of forced it to put it out. So that's what was going on too. From the best of my recollection was they really didn't want to put it on, hence why they didn't get behind it. No video. Yeah. But anyway, so that's how I met that, and that's how I did The Heavenly Kid. And then Doc said, "Don't do the R&B record with him." He goes, "I got this other guy on Elektra, and we could do something with him, more rock, more stuff like that." And it didn't work out. So.
So what's your preference? What music do you enjoy the most then?
I still feel like I'm a rocker. I still I still love, rock, power ballads, power rock, some of the stuff I sing, now when I do the show, I like music, and I like, really great songs. So I find stuff that has meaning to me as far as the lyric goes, what it does to me, and then just, liking the melody, it's just stuff like that. But I love rock. I still listen to it, but I listen to everything, I even sing, in this television show I do, the guy wants me to sing Italian. But I do play I play Tommaso Bellucci from Sicily, guys. So you gotta watch out. Tommaso the Mark, So, which we just got signed for 5 seasons, which I'm excited about. And I don't have a major lead, but I'm recurring role. So the season 1, which we thought we were dead. But it lived, and we did this 2 years. It came out in 22. It was on Amazon. It's still on Amazon. And then the pandemic came, which I had a series signed. I was going to do it like George Lopez out here, Michael Madsen, a whole bunch of really good guys. The guy from The Godfather. I'm trying to think of his Gianni Russo. And then the pandemic came, and that killed everything. Obviously, killed people, killed the whole thing, and so that that went away. And then as soon as I get the momentum back again, the strike happened. The SAG-AFTRA strike happened.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's backtrack a little bit, John, because how long have you been acting, and how did you get into that?
Okay, so that's about 5 years ago, and I did it out of, I used to do back in the days in the 80s, I did some off-Broadway musical stuff. Mm-hmm. I did a show called Leader of the Pack that went to Broadway. It didn't go with me. It was a bunch of guys like Paul Schaefer was in it. He played Phil Spector. So it was about the story of the producer writers of all those songs, Leader of the Pack, Going to the Chapel, anything back from that era that Ellie Greenwich wrote. Ellie Greenwich and her husband. And so they wrote River Deep Mountain High, stuff like that. I was lucky enough to sing that song, which I still do today in my show sometimes. I got to sing that song on every night at the Bottom Line. Remember the Bottom Line?
Oh, sure.
Great rock club. So we did that show in the 80s and standing room only for like several months. I mean, so many people came to see it. People came, they were offering me some acting gigs out here in LA, but nothing definite. It was like, oh, come out to LA and, maybe, and, I'm working. And I'm doing, I have a life. I'm doing jingles. I loved it. I was, singing, making money and having a life after all the times of trying to get to where you get to. And so that was always in the back of my mind. I've always loved acting. Flash forward, do you know any background about my daughter, who she was married to, any of that stuff?
No.
Okay.
No.
So my wife, I'm married 20 years, and if you can find it, but my daughter was married to Charlie Sheen.
Oh.
So when we moved out,
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I have two grandchildren. She's my stepdaughter, but she calls me dad. We're like, her dad had passed away when I met her anyway. So her name's Brooke Mueller, and so I knew Charlie, and so that I've always toyed with it, and all that stuff. Met his brother. We were close with the family and all that stuff, Emilio and all that stuff. And then when I got divorced, we just sort of went like this. We still keep in touch. Charlie, he's out in Malibu with the kids, stuff like that. And but never helped me as far as an actor. Talked about some things, but never happened. But so it's always in the back of my mind that I always wanted to try it. So since I'm in the union about 5 years ago, I just started going to seminars around here and to see if I like it. I started taking classes. I started taking improv 1, 2, and 3 at the Second City here, and just snowballing to about a year and a half. Then finally I got my pictures. Like I knew I was gonna have to like commercials, or work and audition, and that's what happened with jingles. It took me over probably a good year and a half before I got my first spot, and that was from the Alessi brothers. You guys know?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely,
great album.
Yeah. So Bobby and Billy, I remember I got a call and he goes, "Hey, you're going to do your first final." I go, "Really?" It was a Soft and Dry commercial. That was the first one that broke me. And then once that went on, it was like, "Get me that guy. Get me." The same old thing. It's like you get a hit, and it's like let's get another hit, and then
Sure.
And that's how it happened. But so. That's what happened with the movies. We did, we have some dinner parties here. I have a piano here. I play, but poorly, but I'll hire a piano player to play, and I'll, get up and sing some songs. So my wife knew Lee Majors, the old time actor.
Sure, $6 million man.
So he and his wife were here, and that would have been probably 5 years ago. Would have been this like sort of December coming up. Yeah, I'd say 4 years ago this December. And I had already taken my classes. I got my pictures ready. I sing. He goes, "So what are you doing, with yourself?" And I go, "Well, I'm really into acting." And he goes, "Well, send me your pictures." I got he's living in Houston. I got an up and coming producer, director who's doing a movie. Maybe you'll get your feet wet. You'll get a line or two, you'll play a DEA agent. It's a drug cartel movie. Mm-hmm. So I sent him my pictures, the producer, you saw my picture up there before. and it lends itself, I guess, to that kind of genre, which is great, and so that's how it was. He sends me the script, and he goes, "I want you to do a self tape." Back then, we were doing self tapes. Put yourself on tape doing Pallone. So I read the script. I go, Pallone. He's like one of the leads in the film. He goes, "Yeah, you'd be great." He said, "You're like a, like the Godfather kind of thing, Brando, that kind of thing."
Yeah.
I go, "Well, that's impressive." So that's what happened. I did the tape, easy tape, and so I got the role, and that came out. It was the first one that came out. It was on. I don't even think it's on Amazon anymore. I don't know where it is. It's called Narcos Sub.
Right. Yes. 2021.
Yeah, 21, and then they re-released it as The Shipment, and they started selling it is in like a DVD or whatever.
Ah, okay.
Stores. It streamed somewhere. I don't know, but that led me to some other things that I ended up doing and stuff like that. But that's how I got started, and then eventually I got an agent, then I got a manager, and that's it. And it's not easy, but it gives me something to do. It really gives me, and that was the reason. The reason was I guess I got into singing. Remember the first thing I said to you was when the person handed me the mic at that club, I heard this, and something happened. The energy between me and the audience, and so it's all about I'm a performer. I like to try and move people. And in this case, I'm telling a story. I'm just telling a story. Someone writes a script, and my job as an actor is to just tell the story that the writer wrote.
Sure.
And I'm learning more and more. This is what I do. I zoomed with guys in London today.
Yeah.
We it's an ongoing process of just to be more and more, to be better at whatever you do, so.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Speaking of performing, I read a few years ago when you did the album cover for Preview, the best of the band didn't like you being on the front.
exactly. That's exactly it.
That's a good question. I always thought of that too. It was a band, but there was only one guy that was pictured.
Yeah.
And these guys are in the back, right?
Really in the back, yeah.
Or the back
they
cover.
were pissed. But why did they cut my head off too? That was something I never understood it. I did have hair. Trust me, I had a lot more hair then. And
where was that picture shot?
It was shot in downtown LA. And on some. It's funny how I can remember these names. Mick Haggerty. Imagine that. I can remember these names. I can't
It was a
remember
weird cover too, because when you
names.
first looked at the cover, you weren't really sure what it was. You had to really study it. I say, okay, he's pulling like when you first looked at it, you wouldn't really You didn't really know what the hell it was.
Yeah, so Mick Haggerty was the guy in charge of photography and all that. He was the guy who came up with that concept. And for whatever reason, they were pissed. It's like they were saying, well, why couldn't I be that? And they would say, well, you're not the lead singer.
Yeah, I mean, the singer does get deference over the rest of the band, but this was a lot of deference.
But it was weird. Yeah, it was almost like it's Jon Fiore, but it says Preview.
Right. Yeah,
I thought you were going to say you didn't play on the album.
Exactly. And then, well, you guys know that somebody released a Red Lights in red vinyl. Did you guys?
I had heard about that.
Yeah, someone contacted me and says, "Hey, I got some of those." I go, "Really?"
What they put this out on red vinyl?
The one song, right? The Red Light song.
Oh, the one song. Okay. That's even stranger.
Yeah.
This was way after the fact. I guess this wasn't something that happened.
Yeah. I think they wanted to do it. That was what they were thinking of doing, but I don't know. Who knows? So
Good stuff. Anything else, JJ, that you wanted to bring up?
Well, if we're back on the album again, I was always interested in. I read this article once, and so Kolodno come to see you a few times. Was this when you were supporting the big acts, or was this just you on your own in a small club? Because when you were supporting Benatar was probably the big one. Was he coming to those shows?
No. We got Pat Benatar after we got the deal, and
right.
And it's like that was almost like we knew the record. They said they were going to put it out, and we were really pissed. So I think the plan was, let's get these guys out on the road. So they gave us the Benatar tour. Then Asia. We opened up the Asia, which was phenomenal. And it was, the people loved us. And how many people come to see the opening band? Very few, right?
Mm. Yeah.
You get one guy in the back, something like that. A few people that show up. But the response was great. We were definitely a good live band. We were good, and we would have been great if we could have just kept doing it. But yeah, so that's how that happened. Kolodner and we were doing some shows around just to get us, because we wanted the showcase. That was the whole idea, to get a showcase together. We had a plan. Our manager had a plan. You know who got involved with this? You remember an English manager called David Hemmings?
Hemmings, yeah.
Yeah, Hemmings. Hemmings was involved early with this guy, Arlo. And so really it was Hemmings that became our manager. We wanted to get Doc, but for some reason, I think Doc was busy with whoever he had at that time. I forget who was in
Bon Jovi.
Yeah, I don't think Bon Jovi came out then. Bon Jovi came out then. But I forget who was out then that they had. I don't know. But anyway, we got this guy David Hemmings, and it wasn't working out. So Arlo took us over. A lot of the guys weren't happy with him, but we knew him. He was like a friend, so to speak.
Yeah.
He ended up working on the Bon Jovi, stuff as far as being like a road manager or, a liaison or something like that.
Yeah.
But so that's, so it's a miracle that we got that far. I mean, we went through so many different people, trying to find the right management, so.
Yeah. So I suppose there were no tour shirts printed.
What'd you say?
No tour shirts printed.
No.
No merchandise, right?
No, there wasn't much, put it that way. It's so funny. I got to meet Gene Simmons years ago. He lived here in this big house here in Beverly Hills somewhere. And he took us into his memorabilia room. You talk about, one huge room full of all Kiss stuff.
Anything that had Kiss on it, right?
Everything. Unbelievable. And I know Doc manages Kiss, I think.
Sure,
too,
yeah.
To this day.
Yeah.
And we're gonna reconnect because he's he's very close to a friend of mine in Colorado. So we keep talking, not together, but we keep talking about trying to get us together. So I think it's going to happen, like all.
So everything in this memorabilia room that he had was Kiss.
Yes.
He's very humble, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, he's Kiss.
He's a businessman. Hey, he's got anything you can put the Kiss name on. It could be a radio, a coffin, whatever you want.
He is a businessman. Oh,
A lot of things. Leave it at that.
It must have been a really big room.
It was huge.
Yeah.
The house was a mansion. It was one of these,
Well, it better be.
But he sold it. He sold it, and he moves. I think he moved somewhere else, smaller.
Yeah.
It's only a block along the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, anything else, JJ, before we wrap it up here?
Fun, guys. We got to revisit this again. This was a lot.
I know.
But we got to do the documentary. You promised.
Yes.
We are going to work on a documentary. Yes.
Let's do it.
Going to hold you to that.
Yeah. Hey, listen, maybe we'll have this 20th century record come out again. Who knows? So
There you go. We'll have to look into that too.
I was just going to end with that, not about preview, but about the demos and stuff you've got. Is there anything in the pipeline then, maybe for some sort of, compilation release?
Well, that's what I'm hoping to do with this guy, Dave. He contacted me with this other guy. Trying to think of his partner, Kai. Kai is the other guy who contacted
yes.
me. But this guy, Dave's in Vegas, so we talked, and he has a bunch of these. So I have to listen to them, and he's got to go through, contact whoever the writer is. If it's something I wrote, it's a lot easier, or co-wrote. The really good stuff that I can get is the stuff I co-wrote with. Well, not all of them, but I co-wrote a couple. But Jed Lever, you know who Jed Lever is, right? So Jed put a band together with me, and he has a recording studio out here, but back in those days, and we were almost signed to Warner Brothers, and we had some great songs. We got really, really good stuff. And songs like they were called was Jane, but it was changed to Shane. Mm-hmm. And then there was another one, If You Take Me Back, which is a song that I co-wrote. And there's there's about 4 or 5 of them, and they're rocking, with some nice stuff. So maybe that's what Dave has, and if we can get it together, if I could contact Jed, and obviously he's got to be okay with it. I mean, I don't know why anybody wouldn't be okay. I mean, what are you talking about? A penny or something? 2 pennies?
So what era is this? 80s, 90s?
Yeah, it would be in the 80s, 90s. Yeah, 80s.
Yeah.
Late 80s, 90s. I'm trying to think. I think it was I think it was after. I think it was after this stuff. Yeah, he saw me at the Bottom Line doing the Leader of the Pack show, and he loved my voice. He came backstage. He was working with I'm going down. Beck. He was working with Jeff Beck, who I loved. Man, gosh, what great music. So he was working with Jeff Beck, and he was friendly with them. I think he came back with Beck, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. And
that was on Beck, Bogut, and Appice, that song. Right?
Oh yeah,
I'm going down,
down. Great song. Oh God.
Yeah.
So guess who he got Simon Phillips to play drums on it.
Wow.
So we flew out to London to Simon's house, which is out in the east somewhere in England, and we stayed at his place for a couple of days. We recorded a couple of songs. Simon on the, oh my gosh, the double.
It's tremendous.
I mean, it was great. It was just, we were making music. It was phenomenal. So that's part of the demos. And Simon was, we were hoping to get this deal. It was close, but again, didn't happen for whatever reason. And but we got those demos, and maybe if I can, convince Jed, to have these things, but you never know.
Yeah. Well, okay. we'll keep an eye out for that.
You'll be the first to hear if it happens.
All right. Okay. All right. We'll put it out at the same time the documentary comes out.
Jersey guys.
That's right. Well, the documentary comes out, it'll be like a package deal, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess John, we appreciate these great stories tonight, and it was great. We'll have to, like I said, we'll have to do a part 2 at some point.
Oh, I love it. It's a lot of fun, man. Really, you guys are great.
Thank you.
Every single one of you.
Thanks, John. Loved it.
I appreciate you guys. Take care, buddy.
Thank you.
Thanks,
JJ,
John.
we'll talk to you soon. John, take care. Hi.
Arrivederci.
Bye.
Oh, yeah. Look out for Surviving the Cartel. That's the one I'm in.
That's the next thing? Okay.
Well, that's the one that I did season 1. We just signed 5 seasons, a total of 5.
And what's that going to air on?
It's going to be worldwide on AMC channel.
AMC.
It's on Amazon now.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, but season 1 only had 5 episodes, and I was in episode 3 and 5, I think, or 3 and 4.
I got to look for that.
I'm in 2 of them.
Okay.
And but going forward, we were supposed to record we do it in Mexico. We were supposed to do it about in the end of July, and they had an issue with a visa on one of the guys. So a lot of these guys are from Argentina or Mexico. They all speak Spanish. My role was originally, Tomasco, like this. I speak, I'm a Sicilian mafia, entrepreneur guy. So, and I speak Italian in it, and I speak some Spanish and stuff like that. My Spanish is not so good, más o menos. But so that's how that developed. And so it's on Amazon now, and they got this together where AMC is going to distribute it worldwide. So we're happy about that. I'm filming. I got the dates for March of next year, and season 2 will be on in July. So maybe we'll do a Jersey Guys thing. Yeah.
Great. That'd be cool.
Very good. I got to look for it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
All
you,
right.
guys. Appreciate
Take care, John.
Very good. Take care, John. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Okay, man. Thanks.
Bye-bye, JJ. Take care, mate.
And you, John.
Thank you.
Bye.